Here's a story. I heard the story from someone who was very reliable, but then I heard the story in a totally different way from someone that's also very reliable. So I'll tell the way I like. A young man, a young man came into. Uh, okay, a young man came into the office of Rabbi Shabbatai Slavititsky with his mother. And his mother said, my son wants to marry a non-Jew, non-Jewish girl. What am I going to do? So the young man said, listen, Rabbi, before you start talking, I want you to know that my mother is driving me crazy about this. And she already took me to two rabbis. They didn't do any good, and you're not going to do any good either. So he said, well, what did the rabbis say? He said, the first rabbi, she took me, he told me that there's a long chain, a golden chain of self-sacrifice for Judaism. And that Jews do not marry, they don't intermarry. Jews do not intermarry. And if you intermarry, you're breaking this chain from Abraham. So I thought about it, and in a couple of seconds, I thought, maybe the man is right. Judaism is, they've sacrificed so much, Holocaust and all this. How can I marry out? And then I thought to myself, 1 second, Rabbi, you keep the chain. I want to have to keep the chain. I like this girl. I want to get married. So it didn't have any effect. Then my mother took me into another rabbi. This rabbi showed me all sorts of charts and surveys and the proofs that 90% of intermarriages, mixed marriages, Jews and non-Jews, they don't succeed. They don't succeed. They end in divorce and tragedy. So I thought about it for a while. I thought, yeah, that's pretty severe. All these people that got married, they thought it was going to go good, and they really wanted to, just like me, and it didn't turn out good. But I said, 1 second. In other words, 10% are successful. So I'll be one of those 10%. She also didn't impress me. So Rabbi Slavititsky suggested that or my mother, whatever, anyway, but that he was going to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and they would go in front of the Lubavitcher Rebbe together. Like I say, this is just the way I heard the story. It could be there wasn't Rabbi Shabbatai. It couldn't be there weren't two rabbis. But anyway, the general gist of the story you'll get, and my intentions are good. And I heard the story from people who swore that the story is true. So, okay, here we go. So he takes them to the Rebbe, and they're standing. It used to be the Rebbe would give out dollars. Every Sunday, the Rebbe would give out dollars. And people would stand in line. Thousands of people would stand in lines, and the Rebbe would give out $1 and a blessing. And sometimes once in a while, a person would have a request, but there were also secretaries there that would push people so that people wouldn't just, to waste the Rebbe's time. So he goes in front of the Rebbe, and he gets $1, and the rabbi that brings him there says he wants to marry a non-Jewish girl. So the Rebbe says to him, to the young man, I envy you. So that was the last thing he thought, that the Rebbe would say. He envies me, He thought maybe I'll tell him, she's got a girlfriend. What is he in? What? Maybe I can introduce. He said, you envy me. So the Rebbe said, yes. He said, you should know that anytime a person is given a challenge in life, as God also gives them the power to withstand this challenge and to succeed in overcoming this challenge. And when he does overcome the challenge, then he gets special blessings. Said, I in my life, said the Rebbe, I've never had such a challenge as you've got. And so therefore, he said, and anytime a person stands in this challenge, he goes up another rung in the ladder of self-achievement, of holiness. And the Rebbe said, I never had such a challenge in my life as you have, which means that I was not given the powers of the achievement of this, so I envy you. And he gave him $1, said, but you should know the God that gives you powers and you have the ability to succeed. And he gave him the $1. So the young man said, very nice, didn't say anything. They went back home. And a couple months later, he came back into the rabbi's office. Now he had a little beard, and he gave him an invitation to a wedding. He's marrying a Jewish girl. So the rabbi said, he said, oh, it's you. We're wonderful. I've forgotten about the whole thing. What was it that the Rebbe did? What did he say to you? What happened? You decided. He said, listen, the fact is I really like that girl. And, I really still really like and admire her. But I realized that it wouldn't be for my benefit. It wouldn't be for her benefit if we got married. He said, but one thing, the first rabbi my mother took me, the other rabbis were a little bit different. So the first rabbi my mother took me to, he talked about the past, what was. What was in the past, a chain of Judaism, a history. The second rabbi, he talked about the future, what's going to be. It's not going to be. But this rabbi, he talked about right now, what is now, that I have the powers and I am being given a challenge and who I really am. And that really found favor in my eyes. That I liked. And that's what convinced me to express my Jewish identity to marry a Jewish girl. God bless you all. Have a good day with Mashiach now, and I'll see you everyone at 8:15 tomorrow morning.